It's been 2 years since I last sat in this very comfy chair and talked about downhill bikes. Not a lot has changed in those 2 years about our feelings for DH here at RAAW. In fact, even though we're all 2 years older, we all look at DH bikes, racing, and the whole culture around it with even more childlike excitement. Whether you own a DH bike or not, you likely look at them with those same eyes. No other bike can get you as excited to go and ride just from the sheer looks. All the stories that unfold from racing will constantly have you on the edge of your seat. But above all, when you go and ride a DH bike, nothing else comes close, not even a little bit. It's been an absolute pleasure to have the Yalla in our lineup here at RAAW. DH bikes might not make sense to the corporate bean counters, but luckily enough, our bean counter started racing DH in his early years. So show him a set of dual crown forks and it's a thumbs up from Felix. It's been amazing to see it grow from those first 2 samples that Ruben and I had, all the way to being represented at World Cups and even World Championships, as well as flying high at Fest Series events and Red Bull street races. But more than that, it's been simply heartwarming to see fellow Yalla owners out on the trails, riding them and getting them dirty. When we developed that Yalla V1, we wanted to build a bike for riding. A dependable platform that allowed racers and riders alike to tune the bike to their preferences and drop their heels, lift their eyeline and push their limits, no matter where that limit lived. Since the Yalla V1 became a collection of tubes instead of just ideas, we've learned a lot. Not just in ways to make a bike ride better, but also in understanding why we loved that Yalla V1 so much. Retaining the way a bike rides so well is as important as finding new ways to improve it. We also made a bunch of refinements to our new Madonna V3 and Jibb V2 that were also transferable across to a DH platform. So 2 years on, it's time to put the kettle on and pull up a pew as we go through all the details of our new Yalla V2. The Yalla V1, as well as our Madonna and Jibb, are based around 29-inch wheels front and rear. We were, and still are, big fans of big wheels for their rollover and on-rails locked-in feel and the unadulterated speed that this can bring. But we do understand that this can have a big presence on the bike for some riders. When we went racing on the Yalla V1, lots of racers loved the 29-inch wheels front and back, but some did ask for a 27.5 rear wheel for trouser clearance or general bike feel reasons. A big wheel moving through DH bike amounts of travel does take up a fair bit of space, and that locked-in on-rails feel we love does take a little bit more of open-in turns to get the most out of it. We made some of those racers a dedicated lower shock mount for using with a smaller rear wheel, but unfortunately it did push the clearances on the frame too tight for us to release it to the public. But we're happy to report that for the Yalla V2, we've brought this wheel size compatibility to everybody. From stock, the chassis is designed around 29-inch wheels front and rear, but there is now more space in the critical areas to use the MX lower shock mount. This shock mount sits the bike back up, working to correct the head angle, reach and BB height changes that would come about from the smaller rear wheel if left uncorrected. Riders can benefit from the MX setup with increased trouser clearance, especially when things get really steep and steppy. But if you also like to turn later and smack the turns like a maniac, then the MX setup also allows you to do this in those instances. We didn't want to change the Yalla just for the sake of change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And we're not fans of starting with a blank sheet of paper every time we start a bike development. The Yalla V2 geometry is one of those areas that remains unchanged. We were simply stoked on the rider fit and the bike feel that we got from the Yalla V1, so we transplanted that all across. And not to let Mike Kazima down, but there's no secret sauce to the geometry recipe that we put into our bikes. We simply spent too long riding bikes with high feet and low hands that we knew exactly where we wanted to be when we were riding. The Yalla V2 remains this low BB that drops the rider in the chassis, as well as a high stack which puts the rider's body position in a ready for anything position, which is perfect for downhill riding. The balance of reach and chainstay gives stability through length, but also ensures balance in load between the front and rear wheels. Having confidence in the front wheel traction is incredibly important for riding fast, and it not only comes from where the front wheel is placed, but also where the rear is placed. The Yalla comes in sizes M, L and XL with reaches of 455, 480 and 505mm respectively, with the ability to go plus or minus 5mm in the reach on all those sizes. Out back, the chainstay lengths evolved by 5mm per size, as well as also having that ability to go plus or minus 5mm in length to tune fit and feel. Raceheads can lengthen their bikes at both ends for more stability at speed, Or alternatively, park rats can shorten their bike at both ends to create a more compact package and up the agility. It's a similar story in the suspension department for the Yalla V2, with the base kinematic and window of adjustability remaining the same. 198mm of travel is delivered by the always dependable Horst or crab link layout. We believe that this old but gold layout is one of the best for balancing all the tangible factors as well as some of the not so known factors in bike development. This layout gives us enough pivots to move around the suspension characteristics as we need, naturally has smooth curves that promote predictability when you ride, all while doing it in the simplest way possible and with the most efficient use of material like tubes, forgings and bearings. Complexity might wow a lot of people and be good for using at a prototype level for when you need to figure things out, but there's no need to carry around all that complication with you for every single run that you'll do on a bike. The leverage ratio of the Yalla V2 in the mid setting goes from 3.08 down to 2.31. It creates great suppleness high in the stroke for good bump absorption, loads of mid-stroke support that aids your inputs into the bike rather than saps them, while also providing ample bottom-out support for when you hook your meat to the moon. The shape and smoothness of the curve provides no surprises going in and out of travel, so there's simply no second guessing what the bike's going to do. Leverage ratios and progression can be adjusted 3% either way, depending on whether you want a more active or a more supportive bike. These changes affecting the areas of travel you spend more time in and are more easily felt, while the bottom-out resistance remains the same in all settings. The Yalla V2 remains neither an overly progressive nor overly linear bike, with again, our aim being about balance. This also means that there's no need to set the Yalla up with bucket loads of sag just because it's a DH bike. We recommend 25% as a starting point to give a good balance of bump absorption, support and bottom-out resistance while retaining a good dynamic ride height while giving you plenty of travel to use it when you need to use it. Anti-squat, or how the bike reacts to load shifts due to acceleration, is higher than on other bikes, the Madonna and the Jibb, which are meant for more pedaling. On a DH bike, it's more about stud sprinting for the line than it is about long, seated fire road climbs. So the rider's position and inputs into the bike are very different. The high anti-squat allows the bike to remain direct and taut under high-intensity bursts of power, but drops off as the bike goes through its travel to reduce the chain influence on the bike when it's deeper in travel. DH levels of travel naturally give more chain influence over shorter travel bikes, and so the Yalla V2 meshes very well with chain influence reducing devices out there like O-Chain's Active Spider or E13's Sidekick Hub. But if you don't have any of those products at hand, no worries, the Yalla still functions just fine without. Anti-rise, or how the bike reacts to load shifts due to deceleration, is designed to strike a balance between chassis stability and bump absorption. It's high enough to provide some good chassis support for when you really pull on the anchors, although quite a lot of bike pitching can be handled by a good fork setup, but it's not so high that you need Loic-Bruni levels of braking precision to really get the most out of the bike. One of the areas that we spent a lot of time in development of the Yalla V2 was the dropouts. Being big fans of adjustability, we wanted to find a way to offer adjustable chainstay lengths on the Yalla while also being compatible with SRAM's UDH. Chainstay length adjustment is one of the most pure adjustments on a bike, and we simply weren't ready to give it up. Rather than have the adjustment pieces which live inside the dropout, we turned the whole dropout itself into the adjustment piece. The interchangeable parts allow for plus or minus 5mm from that base chainstay setting. They bolt up solidly to the rest of the frame and can be swapped out in a matter of minutes. The non-drive side also uses a pinch bolt to hold onto the axle and stop it from undoing during hard cornering and flexing going into the frame. While adjustability is a great thing for changing the way a bike feels, we also wanted to reduce the number of parts that you would need to buy in order to do it. Our redesigned brake mount encompasses all 3 chainstay lengths in one mount, meaning that all you need to do is switch it forwards or backwards to match the chainstay length you want to choose. It's available for 200 or 220mm rotors, or 203 and 223 with the supplied spacers. The Yalla V2 is also now designed around a 148mm rear hub. The narrow rear end gives you more clearance for when you're threading through sections of trail that have you holding your breath, and it's pretty proven that 148 wheels now hold up pretty damn well in downhill. The added bonus being that there are now fewer standards for all the bikes in your garage. The Yalla is the bike that started our toolbox concept. With downhill being a sport with higher average speeds and repeated runs on the same track, in no other genre of bikes is adjustability the best tool for getting the most out of the bike and the rider. That said, we sweated the details about every single mid-position on the bike, meaning that if tinkering is not your thing, then absolutely no worries. You can just grab the bike and go. But if you do like to morph a bike to your preferences as a rider, or you just want to experiment with changing things and seeing how that affects the way a bike feels, then you can now play with things at the front, the middle, and the rear of the bike to adjust the bike with ease. All of the adjustability from the Yalla V1 is retained in the Yalla V2, like the chainstay length and leverage ratio adjustments that we already talked about. Those interchangeable shock mounts also give the ability to go plus or minus 3mm on the BB height, changing where the rider's position is in the chassis. The straight ZS56 head tube remains, allowing for easy angle or reach adjustments with our RAAW headset cups. Accurate markings on the cups and the frame mean changing headset cups out is an absolute doddle. Our new downtube from the Madonna V3 and Jibb V2 also comes across to the Yalla V2, ensuring vast shock clearance across all sizes, less mechanical forming of the tube, and it also reduces the size of the BB forge part, replacing it with a tube that also saves a little bit of weight. It's protected by our updated downtube protector, which gives a healthy amount of rubber across the whole width of the tube, protecting it from impacts and rogue rocks. Cable routing follows the clean lines of the Jibb and Madonna 2, allowing for really smooth mechanical shifting. It also goes under our new chainstay protector, moving the cable completely out of harm's way. The protector extends around the tube, covering heel rub areas, and is securely held in place with sunken zip ties. We're still massive proponents of external cable routing, no matter the bike. But in downhill more than any other, it makes more sense to have a bike that's easy and quick to work on under the pressures of a race week. The Yalla V2 features a combination of everything that we loved about the Yalla V1, as well as all the learnings and advancements that we've learned along the way since we first started drafting what a RAAW DH bike could look like way back in 2019. Time ticks on no matter what, and there's a fine line between redefined and refined. Fans of RAAW will know exactly which way we lean with that one. While a ton of details have changed, and changed for the better, many core aspects of the Yalla V2 remain unchanged. It's still a bike focused on going as fast as possible. It's still a bike that will have your back no matter what mischief you throw it into. And it's still a bike that will sing and dance all season long without so much as a look at the hose. Yalla is downhill to us at RAAW, and we still love it to bits.